السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام.
So, marriage in Islam, this is primarily the overwhelming majority of the material I'll cover in that is how I studied it with one of my teachers, Dr. Walid Basyuni, and some of my other teachers as well, Dr. Hatim Hajj, and as well as some others as well. Those are two mainly the ones I studied with, as well as Sheikh Yaqub al-Jaf. So what I'm trying to convey is a summary, if you will, in a preparation to help everyone in this room better understand the responsibilities that go into being married and not just the infatuation part of it. Because that's going to come regardless. Allah Azza wa Jalla has control over your heart. You don't have control over that. So who you wind up falling in love with, who you have that love at first sight with, that entire business is not really in your control. What is in your control is the actions that you take after such a feeling or in pursuit of that feeling. And that's what you're held accountable for, right? It's not that you have a crush on a particular person, that you're not held accountable for. It's whether you decided to start flirting, and we'll cover how flirting happens, and it comes in many different ways. And it's about what steps you took to embark upon that journey. There's a halal way of doing it, and then there is obviously the impermissible way, which can wind up earning Allah's punishment, and that's the last thing we want to do. The purpose of marriage in Islam, so everyone is very clear. I'm actually curious what you guys think is the purpose of marriage. You know, I mean, that's what most people go to college for, and now that's what I found out, at least. So I'm curious, what do you guys think is the purpose of marriage in Islam? Yes.
It's kind of to make a structural building block for society, because the nuclear family helps raise basically decent morals.
You a chemical engineer?
No. Not
I just wonder if you use those words when you're proposing to a girl, how well that'll be received. This makes perfect sense. You know, we finish our degrees, we have to create the nucleus in society and say yes, or discount the mahar, and move on. But you're right, it does provide a structure to society. It does allow for society to flourish in a social manner. You're right in that regard. Right? Anybody else? Yes? Yeah?
I'm not sure if it's when, like, I'm someone who is very friendly with me and always help me to get closer to Allah. And also it's part, like, half of my team, so I like it.
So that's very, very important. He said that so essentially companionship, right? So companionship, somebody that you want to marry your best friend type of cliche statement, right? That's very good. That's nice. Alhamdulillah, that's good. Sister in the back had an idea? No? She's stretching her own mouth. Yep.
To grow the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's ummah.
That is actually a reason, because the
That's,
Prophet ﷺ said it very clearly. He said that marry a spouse. He said, for I shall be proud of a large number on the day of judgment of Muslims, of the ummah, because every prophet is united with his ummah on the day of judgment. So there's a few reasons, right? And so we're going to go over them just quickly. This is brief. This is not the entire focus of this particular class. So one is procreation, like we mentioned. It also, the Prophet ﷺ said, if I had one night in this life, Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, if I had one night in this life, I would rather spend it as a married person, not as single. And he said that is how the Prophet ﷺ was. The Prophet ﷺ also told us that every prophet got married. He said, don't think of yourselves as someone in high regard if you're in a religious sense, if you're somebody who doesn't get married. Any of the scholars that you've probably heard of that never got married in their lifetime actually had handmaids, which is milk al-yamin. They were not necessarily not fulfilling that particular need, that sexual desire. They were fulfilling it in a halal way. So marriage is a big responsibility. It also comes with physical pleasure. That's the obvious reason as well. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that in the Quran in chapter 3, verse 14. You can reference that and you can read that when you get a chance. It also forms a cornerstone of the society itself. Families allow for moral growth. What happens when you do not have a family structure, people start, when a person is single, they tend to act a lot more risky. They tend to act a lot more immature than they would had they had the responsibility of looking after people. And the entire world recognizes that, right? So the moment that you get your license, your parents' car insurance goes up. And if you didn't know that, that is what happens, right? And so the moment you get married and start having children, your car insurance actually starts going down. And that's because you start acting differently. You start doing things very differently. You start second guessing yourself on troublesome situations because you have someone you're responsible for, you're looking after. It's not, you can't just be selfish with your decisions anymore. So it does help the society itself. And also it brings people together. When you have a family and when you get married, you typically, if you may not know that other side of the family of your spouse. And when you get married, you start visiting and you start making connections with the people around you, which is really nice. The companionship, that's very true. Because when Adam alayhi salam, he was looking for his companion and Allah Azza wa Jal gave him Hawa, which is Eve, he was looking for companionship more than anything. So that shows you that yes, you should wind up being able to relate really well with the person that you're speaking to, that you're proposing to, that you're having a meeting and you're setting up the meeting for a possible marriage. Why is that important? Because a lot of people tend to think that I have to marry somebody with my cultural background. So if I'm Desi or Dasi, I should only marry somebody from that group. Or if I'm Egyptian, I should only marry an Egyptian. And that's not necessarily true because as Muslims in America, we kind of formed our own kind of culture, right? If you went back to Egypt and you told them, and they asked you what do you want for lunch, and you told them a hot dog with mustard and ketchup, they might not know what on earth you're talking about. But for the most part, everybody born and raised here, or raised here, has that kind of societal background and that culture. And so we'll talk about that. Is it racist to reject somebody of a different background, even though they might be religious? The short answer for that, just so you're aware, is no, it's not. Because culture does play a role in marriages. But if somebody is rejecting because of racism, then obviously that's one of the major sins. That's following in the steps of the devil himself, Iblis, and you don't want to be doing that, right? Choosing the right spouse. The Prophet ﷺ said a woman is married for 4 things, right? And he said her wealth, her family status, her beauty, one second. I just want to make sure that I say it in the correct order. Her beauty and her religion. And he said, so you should marry the religious woman, otherwise you will be losers. He mentioned that. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said about the men, he said that your children have a right over you. He said your children have a right over you, that you chose for them a very good mother. That's very important as well. And so these are certain indications of what a person should choose. Like there's many things you can marry for. The best of you can marry for is religion. So somebody asked Umar ibn Khattab, they said, oh, what if a man married a religious girl? He said, then it's as if he married a very, very righteous girl. Then they said, what if she was also beautiful? He said, add a 0. It's as if he married, he found the wife a 10 out of 10. He said, what if she's also wealthy? He said, add a 0. It's like you found a girl that's 100 times, so rare. They said, what if she also has an excellent lineage and great family structure and background? He said, add a 0. How rare. That's 1,000 out of 1,000. That's a perfect one. And then he told them, but, he said, if she has all those things and she doesn't have religion, he said, remove the one. He said, remove the one. That's you've married. You married nothing. And that's sometimes people are deterred that they're only following their feelings, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he said something very clear in Sunan ibn Majah. He said, I find nothing better than marriage for 2 people who are in love. So the love existed before the marriage, but it wasn't any actions that were taken upon that to, do anything in a haram way. So there's a lot of things that are played into this kind of background, right? Social status, your background, religiosity, and the physical look. The physical look is everyone for themselves, because what someone finds very attractive, another person might not. So that's something very interesting. Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, when I pass by a man, a young man, a shab, and he's not married, and he has the ability to get married, I only think of him two things. One of two things. He said either he's sexually incapable, he doesn't have any power or something, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the word for it. There's a biology student can correct me, whatever that's called. Or he's somebody who's fajr. He's fulfilling his sexual desires in a haram way. So it's only one of two. And he said, if I find a young man who has the ability to get married, that's a very important condition, because the majority of them do not. Then I think of him, and he's not married, I think of him one of those two things. And it's very true, because the desire with a man is very, is so high that he winds up needing to fulfill it in one way or another. Behavior and character. The Prophet ﷺ, he also said, for the women and what you look for, he said, if you find a man with good akhlaq and good religion, he said, so then don't reject him, or else you'll cause chaos on earth. That doesn't mean that if this person in front of you is so ugly to you that, you know what, the two boxes have been checked, maybe I ought to just marry this dude. You also have to have a liking and a sense of attractiveness to this particular individual. So I want you guys to think on your own right now, okay? And if you have your phone, I would say take out your phone, but the problem is I did that once and then everybody started opening Snapchat and all these weird things. The messages pop up. If you have like a piece of paper or anything, I want you to just write down the top 3 things you're looking for in a spouse, okay? No names, obviously. Please don't write some names. Like, oh, I don't need top 3 things. He's right here. This is your name. So this would be problematic, right? Unless this dude's really wealthy and you're just hoping he comes on a horse for some reason. So top 3 things that you're looking for in a spouse. And you'll be shocked. And the reason I say that is because when I start, and I'm going to collect the papers, so write them down on a piece of paper. So if you don't mind, for the sisters, just write an F in the top corner, and for the brothers, just write an M. Okay? Because I'm going to separate the two. I want to show you that what you think a guy is looking for, you may not be necessarily in that right direction.
See with the connection. I was here.
Are you collecting it?
Mm-hmm. I'm collecting it. So don't doodle and don't,
You said
don't
top,
write your name, obviously.
you said top 3 things?
Top 3 that you're looking for in a spouse. The top 3. And obviously, guys, we're only writing about women. Because if someone's in that other direction, may Allah guide you and make it easy on you. That's not a halal relationship. Some people have that fitna, believe it or not, and it's not a joke. I mean, I actually dealt with a case on a personal level, like last year, and alhamdulillah, that person made tawbah and moved away from it completely. MashaAllah. So I could tell you, there's not a joke. So that's why you really have to guide people on the directions. I want to be very clear.
You heard him happen, right?
There's going to be an M on there and say he could deadlift 500 pounds. You're done already? Yeah, usually the brothers are faster than the girls. So if you're done, just pass it forward. You don't have to give me the entire paper if if you're one of those tree saving types, which we all should be, right?
Save a few trees.
Save some trees, that's fine. So I need M's. Don't forget M and F. M and F. Okay? These are gonna be interesting, man. Thank you. If you can just write it in English, only because it's easier. Thank you.
I'm embarrassed by mom.
I mean, I can read Arabic, but some script is a little hard.
Wait, you're not
Give me another
Arab?
picture.
Huh?
You're not Arabic?
Yeah,
So you do speak Arabic?
I can speak, read, and write Arabic, yes.
I just heard, I think you said you can't read Arabic.
No, I can't, alhamdulillah.
That's what
Okay. All right. And please be brutally honest, because I know some of you, I specifically am not taking your names. This is just like, okay, mashallah. I hope it's true. Thank you. Me too. Yeah. Okay. So if one of the sisters could just collect them and bring them up, if you don't mind. Thank you.
That's what I feel. Yeah, come on.
It's definitely an engineering.
I'll take this.
The sisters are done? 3 more? Okay. Thank you.
No, don't put Don't tell me it's not doing
Thank you. Don't worry, I'll mix them up. I don't know who
That's an empty sheet.
We know we get a small paper, obviously you don't know it's us.
It's okay, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I'm gonna mix them up so they won't see who I'm reading. These are the girls or the guys?
Yeah, we get the small paper, you know it's us.
Oh, it's okay, they probably wrote an M, right?
Yeah.
This is a guy.
In case you pick us, the second one was his.
Oh, we still have one more back there.
He put
Still have one more.
citizenship.
Alright. See, the sisters got gold out. They're on number 4 and 5.
Here, give me.
I will lie you for that.
Who knows what she
That was my
wants?
first.
This is a male. Okay. Done? Done? You're finished? Okay.
I can find the last.
That's okay.
Oh, he gave a list.
No, it's better.
Oh, okay. My fault.
Yeah.
What? He goes one thing.
Okay. Oh, this one. All right. All right. I'm gonna read these out loud, and then I'll show you what as other surveys showed as well. Okay. Number 1. This is from the sister side. Guys, pay attention. If you ever have a chance in getting married, this is what you do.
Wait, what happened?
What will happen exactly? Pay attention. All right. This is important. All right. Let's see. Bismillah. Sisters, say religiosity, masculinity, ambitious, and gives me the freedom to follow my own ambitions. Okay? Follows the fun. Minimum. Looking for just fun over here. Career ambitions. Lets me follow my career ambitions. Make sure you guys take a note. Respects his mother and his family. Oh. Speaks Arabic and is religious. Okay? The deen, which is also to honor and respect, responsibility. Similar background, not necessarily culturally, more similar religious background. Okay? Truly religious, not an extremist. Obviously. Want to make sure. Good character. They have a college education and a job. Some people have been proposing to live under the bridge. Trustworthy. Humor. Nice smile. Get your teeth fixed, boys. Alright?
I heard him half there.
Yeah, you heard about that problem?
Slightly
Some people
Half together, probably.
just
Good?
pointing in too many directions.
Right?
Commitment to the dean.
That disappointment, bro.
A sense of responsibility. And respectful to those around them. A lot of respect in here. Respect. Religious, educated, kindness, respect for others and family. Okay? Important. Intellect, religious, and personality. Religious, smart, and cute. Yeah, there you go. There goes everyone in this room. There you go. Don't worry, guys. I'm with you. Female. She says she wants religious, educated, loyal. This loyal, interesting.
I heard him half there.
She don't want no games, no funny business.
I'm sorry, bro.
Alright? Religious, educated, respectful, and patient. Patient is a very important one.
You heard him half there.
Alright? Religious, religiously level, meaning fearing Allah, financial stability, and education. Alright, that's the sisters. Hopefully you guys took notes. Right? The brothers are looking for righteous and respectful. Okay. They're looking for righteous, rational, and beautiful. Okay. not gonna come. I'm just, Hafid. Ooh.
Why you put your name?
Oh my God.
That's your name? I thought you meant somebody who memorized the Quran. Because there's nothing else on your list. You want to marry yourself? That wasn't him, he says. He says that was.
It's not a small paper. The next one.
Okay, continue. Okay, so you have to have deen, respectful, and caring. Okay.
Yeah, my fault, bro.
Then you have to have, let's see this one. Gives good advice, is very good. Has bir and taqwa, and who is always and also able to help. Let's see. Oh, this one's interesting. Oh, brother.
Oh my God.
Canadian citizenship. She has to have money. And she also really does have to have Canadian citizenship. So,
That's conflict.
I hope there's not one particular individual with Canadian citizenship.
Oh, was that you? Was that you? Was that you?
All right. A male, religious, good character, and education. Looking for. This brother says that he believes religion, respect, and patience. Religion, culture, and societal status. So she's like running for president. All right. This one, she should be modest. She should have a humor, and she should have a drive and a passion. A strong sense of taqwa, confidence, good personality, and intelligence. Deen, she should have good religion, intelligence, more so wisdom, generosity, and she should be religious, educated, and beautiful. All right? Win-win situation. All right, so you took notes on that, right? This is pretty important because a lot of times you sit there and you have these thoughts in your head and what a lot of these sisters are looking for and what a sister is looking for in men. Now I'm just going to say one last part of this assignment. I want you to write the top 3 things that are absolute no-nos.
Cool.
That if this is in that, it's a deal breaker. You see? This is important. Let's try to do it quick. If you can't come up with 3, that's fine. If you can't come up with 3, that's fine. But just top 3 if you can quickly. That for you, it's a deal breaker. That you know what? If she has a 3rd ear, I just can't go through with it. You know, and if he has 4 legs, so things like that. It's a pure deal breaker. All right. Not a homework. You're doing that right now. Yeah. Top 3 things that's just like this is not gonna work out. It's not what I'm looking for.
So you're like explaining it?
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay, you can start passing them over to your left. Just pass them all the way to the left,
I'll collect it,
and then
I'll
that
collect
last
it.
person can just
I'll
bring them
collect
up.
I'll pass it, bro. It's the second one. The first one? I want to get hot for them. Fun right now. They might you making a whole list. Like, I don't want this.
I better read this.
You gotta be perfect.
You can read it too. I can't. Same thing with
Bro, right here. Don't touch the tripod. I'm sorry. Damn, bro, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Is this all the guys? Okay. This is all the guys?
This is the guys done. Thank you. What?
Here, somewhere else, you gotta come back. I think we'll find out.
I forgot to put my sorry. No, my name down.
So I have the brothers, right?
I'm gonna get
Sisters done? They're not done yet. Some here. Thank you. Okay. Last time we started with sisters, this time we start with the brothers.
I'm sorry, bro.
The brothers say that these are no-nos, so sisters, pay attention if you want a shot at partnerships. So they say they don't want a mean girl. They don't want somebody who's too anxious or too worried. By the way, you scratch every girl on earth off if you got that one on there. They're all that way, mashallah. And it's not a bad thing, by the way, for those people who think anxious or worried. It's just, it's a good, it could be a good thing.
That's me.
So also too strict. Too strict. I don't know what you mean. Maybe she doesn't let you go out at night. Doesn't pray, fast, or any of the above. This is a no-no for them. If she doesn't wear hijab or wears tight clothes, she can't. I don't know what he's saying here, but this one says, I can't compromise. Don't know what this is. I don't know, maybe he was finishing and then he quit. All right, this fella wrote his name, which I'm not going to mention. My lord. He says, I can't marry Kim Kardashian. This is a big no-no. Any nationality but Canadian, if she's broke. This is the stay-at-home dad type, I think. Too mean. Oh, male friends. She has male friends. Too talkative. Yeah, good luck. Right? You want somebody to talk to. What are you getting married for? Stare at each other? Yeah. This guy's not ready for marriage, whoever he is. But anyhow, any deal breakers. No trust in the spiritual side of Islam. Okay, I don't know how you're going to quantify
This
that.
guy's a Sufi, bro.
But okay. He doesn't want to marry a non-Muslim. Okay, that's a preference, you know. Arrogance or a girl who has too much ego if she's very disrespectful. Okay. This guy says if she has no modesty, if she's selfish, if she's not loyal, and by the way, you know, this loyalty keeps coming up here and there, so they don't mean in terms of chastity, so sisters are pretty clear. They mean in terms of, you know, supporting them in their decision making. You know, for example, if they got a job offer to move to California and that's the only option that they had, you understand that they're not doing this out of a selfish decision, but a better decision for the family. Just keep that in mind. So no deen, and someone who's disrespectful. Okay. This one says. So this one says. And so okay, overweight, somebody who's kafir, and I can't marry a man.
MashaAllah.
Good. Disrespectful, no patience, corrupt. So she robbed the banks, it's not her style. Someone who doesn't pray, antisocial, boring, no desire to develop as a person. These are important things, you know. Dishonest, irrational. And last but not least, gossips, no gossiping. Keeping the information between spouses, only between themselves, you know, that's very important, by the way. That's very important because I know a lot of sisters, and you might hear about this, we're going to cover that. A lot of sisters, unfortunately, they share a lot of the details about their sexual relationship with their husband with other sisters. This is an absolute haram discussion. Keep that in mind. We want to make sure you guys are aware of that, and that's something we'll wind up covering. Anyhow, the sister's side, she will not marry a smoker. Smoker is a big no-no. Someone who's arrogant or condescending, easily angered, bad temper, lazy with no ambition. Okay, very important. Somebody who's cheap. That's very important, by the way. I can't stress that enough. We're going to cover the finances probably 2 weeks from now. And I'll tell you very importantly, after I cover that topic, especially with you brothers, you should recognize how important it is to spend money on your spouses, willingly, unwillingly, surprising, every single which way, shape, or form. So somebody who's cheap, somebody who's inconsiderate, somebody who's arrogant and lazy. Okay. This one says he neglects the deen, flirts with other girls, and does not follow the sunnah for marriage. Very important. gonna cover flirting today, actually. Somebody who's pushy, controlling, not like really controlling. Oh, so she's got something in that realm. Can't handle sarcasm. Well, you know, that's not good. They say they want somebody, this is a no-no. They don't have education or an education level less than mine. That's understandable. Not religious, no career ambition, and not respectful. A lot of respect in here, you'll notice, right? Both sides. He's flirtatious towards other women. She says that's a no-no. He's not career ambitious, does not have a good job, and he's not clean. This comes up a lot, by the way. A lot of brothers forget that they shouldn't be waiting the 40 days to clean up. They should be doing it as quickly as possible. I mean that, because hygiene is a huge problem amongst guys, right? This one says, he won't let me work or study. He doesn't want kids, lives too far, and expects me to move far from my area. She, you know, she has that right. This one says, if he's a cheat, I can't marry someone who's not a virgin, and he has anger issues. Okay? We're gonna cover that today too. Too social with girls. Guys, you guys are flirting like crazy out here. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
He called you
What's
sister,
going
bro.
on? This is not good. Hangs out and goes out with them. Oh, you guys been caught. Just letting you know. No respect for others. No, not attractive at all. No, you can't be the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Although he got the girl at the end.
Depends on the season you're in.
Right, it depends which ending that was, right? Okay, so this one says arrogant or cheap, big no-no, disrespectful and unattractive, right? Let's see, this is first impression, this is a really big deal. This one says extremism, she will not accept that. Lack of humor, no soft side. Okay. This one says easily anger, yells a lot, very impatient, stingy and not generous, afraid of bugs. But you gotta figure she's afraid of bugs, so somebody else can't be. Somebody's gotta kill the spider. So, and it ain't her. It's you. Okay, big no. Can't be a sexist, can't be a racist, and can't be extremist. Meaning, he thinks women shouldn't wear pants. So she has a very loose definition of extremism. Okay. All right, now, let's go quickly over some of the backgrounds. This is so that you guys understand your generation. So you understand what some of the opposite, the spouses that are potential spouses or the opposite genders thinking of in this day and age. So we mentioned a few things. A lot of them come around generosity, right? Some of the things that exist in a man that they're looking for. They're looking for a guy who's going to be generous with them, right? They're looking for a guy in general that he's able to control his temper. You found this, right? They're looking for not somebody who's easily just reacts very quick, very reactionary. You don't want that. Somebody who's compassionate, they mentioned. Somebody who's humble. They don't like somebody who's arrogant. Meaning what? What they mean by that, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, is that when they bring up an idea or a discussion, you don't just shoot it down like, nah, it'll never work. Talk it out. Maybe you'll see a different side of something just by speaking about it, communicating, and you don't have to always think that your way is the correct way. So this is kind of what they're referring to. And again, you could comment or correct me if I'm wrong. And they want you to have high ambitions in life. Because if they're marrying you, one of the biggest things with sisters is a sense of security, right? You notice this thing that they don't want this flirting, they don't want very easygoing with women, right? Things like that. They don't like that stuff. They want to feel comfortable knowing that you're at work and I'm doing my thing, or I'm at work and we're all very respectful and very loyal in that sense as well. Okay, cheerful and honesty. They like this kind of stuff. And some of the things that they're looking for in the sisters, they mentioned the modesty, they mentioned the loyalty, right? We're not trying to say about chaste and not chaste and zina and not zina. They're more talking about being very supportive. Just so you're very clear, sisters, if you are able to find it in you to be a very supportive wife for those decisions that are the hard decisions that you guys have to make as a couple, your husband will be indebted to you for the rest of his life. That's somebody they hold on to very much so. And you can find that all throughout history in people who've written you know, documentaries and stories about men who've been very accomplished, and the other way around. They had a spouse that was very, very, very supportive of their decision making, and they motivated them even when everyone around them, you know, was against them, right? Optimistic. They mentioned sense of humor. They mentioned compassionate. They mentioned very mature. All right. That tells you that she's probably not that into you playing your video games, you know, for 4 or 5 hours a day, unless you find a gamer that's like you, right? This is some of the things that a lot of the guys don't realize. That these little things that you do is the equivalent as if you married a woman, married a sister, and then when you come home from work one day and you see her playing with Barbie and Ken on the dinner table, and you're like, well, what's happening here? I'm like, well, these are just my toys. So you're a little taken back. So when she comes home and she sees you on your little headphones and you got the 30-inch screen and you're downstairs and you're just, you know, playing your video games, it's weird for some of these sisters. And a lot of them have these kinds of problems in marriage. So these are one of the things that you have to learn on how to manage properly. Like maybe you limit it to half hour, hour, if you can, you know, something like that. We had a brother who told us that, you know, his wife, she said, you know, because you're on it all the time, I'll just, you know, let me see about this thing. I'll play with you. So she winds up playing with him. Problem that happened was she was better than him. So about 4 or 5 months into it, yeah, you're shocked by that, right? Because you never beat me at Fortnite. It'll never happen, right? But she actually turned out to be better than him. And he used to get very, very upset with her. Like he took his gaming seriously. And he got very upset with her, caused a lot of problems. And, you know, very shame. Very big shame. So that didn't work out the way you planned. So anyhow, one of the two main important things are, you'll find the similarities, is the faithfulness and also being very loving. Being very loving. Right? The Prophet ﷺ even said that. He said, marry al-wudud, who's the person who's very, very loving and caring. And somebody who's very, very faithful as well. Because even a companion, you guys know the companion Abu Darda, right? Radiallahu anhu. When he passed away, Muawiyah actually went and proposed to his wife for marriage. After the time period expired, you know, like not immediate, obviously, that would be impermissible. So after that time period expired and everything, he went to propose to her and she declined it. She said, no, I'm not going to accept you in marriage. And he asked why. Muawiyah is also a very senior companion. And she said, because I heard the Prophet ﷺ saying that the girl is with, the woman is with in paradise whom she was last married to in the dunya. She said, and I want to be with Abu Darda in the akhirah. So I'm not marrying after his death. I'm not going to remarry. Which is very interesting. Some scholars mention that it was the one, if she married and then her husband passed away and then she got remarried, it's the one who had more taqwa of the two. But it seems that the stronger opinion is it's the one who she was last married to, which kind of falls in line as well with other parts of the religion. You couldn't marry the Prophet's wives after he passed away, but they're also the mothers of the believers, so that maybe technically doesn't work. But nonetheless. Also virginity. Virginity can be a reason to get married. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned if you marry a virgin, you'll have more fun with them. That does not mean that we should isolate the divorced community. Absolutely not. But what Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he mentioned in explaining this, he said rather, if two people proposed to a girl and one of them was a virgin and one of them was not, she should prefer the virgin over the one who wasn't. Same for a guy. If you had the option of going to ask for a sister who was a virgin or a sister who was not, you should try to ask for the one who is a virgin, right? But if you didn't, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, just want to make that clear. It's not like you did something makruh or something disliked or anything. Just a preference, right? And that kind of allows society to flourish in many ways. Also, you marry for beauty, and this is all, everybody's very different on how they define that. Wealth. Wealth is very important because Fatima bint Qais, she said that Muawiyah proposed to her. He proposed to her, this is back in the day, and she said absolutely not, he's suluk, meaning he's broke. He has no money. Why would I marry somebody who doesn't have any money? And this is now where we will differentiate for you guys whether you want to know if you're ready for marriage or not. So the books of fiqh mention a minimum. Do you have a question? Yeah.
I was listening to a lecture, I don't know, but it said that if you don't have any money and you have like urges and you want to get married,
Yeah.
girls in your relatives, like you actually get wealthy if you get married if you have urges. But
Oh, I think he's trying to say that Allah is a provider.
Yeah, we're gonna
It's not-
mention that.
Yeah, it's not like the job you have, like.
Yeah, so very good question. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that very importantly in the Quran, that if you don't have wealth, Allah will give you from His fadl, out of His generosity, to assist you. But there's a clear difference here. There is the bare minimum to be married, and then, meaning the bare minimum is who Allah will irzik, so they don't have to worry about losing any type of money. And so you come back and say, well, what is that? It is whatever the bare minimum in our culture is. The bare minimum. So, a place to live. A place to live. If a mode of transportation is required, then a mode of transportation to get around as a family. So these are bare minimum. We look, and this is your rule of thumb if you're able, if you have the ability to get married or not. Not necessarily initiating the marriage, but it's rather the continuity of that marriage. So if you have the ability, so let's throw a number out, right? And by the way, this financial responsibility falls on you, period. You have to understand that. Yes, you can agree with your wife, you know what, oh, let's split this in half. If you want to work, then you know what, then you have to pay half the bills, ... Then absolutely, if that's what they agreed upon, because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mu'minun ala shurutihim," that the Muslims are upon the options in their contracts that they have taken. So if we wanted to do mental math real quick, so what's the average cost of an apartment rent a month? Quickly, 900. Where on earth?
Where you live, bro?
Just okay. So just so you know, it's about 1,500 bare minimum. If you're in an okay area, you're closer to 2,000 now. This is how expensive things are. Oh, thanks. Okay, so let's quickly do this so you can actually see it. So let's look at this just so you have an idea, right? So if we said that rent was, let's make it easy. We're gonna go low key, 1,500. Do you guys want to eat? You want to eat? I thought so. Let's call that 500 a month, right? So the cable bill, the Netflix, the Hulu, all of their subscriptions, that's nice to have. We would like to have that, but let's call that if you're really in love with each other and you want to get married, but you know you're trying to find the halal way. Let's take that out. I think she'd be willing to live without Hulu for a year, probably. So you get this stuff here. What other expenses do you have? Okay. What does it say? Transportation. Very good. So let's say he already owned the car, and there's some gas, some other expenses, right? We'll just make that easy. Call that 500 a month, because right, gas, insurance, that whole business, right? What other things come up to we added that in there. What is it? Utilities? Oh, awesome. The electric has to be paid, right? We're gonna make that easy. 250. You don't have central air. You're gonna live without it. You're cool. You know what? We're gonna even make it easier. We're gonna go with 100 to make life. We're gonna try to get you guys married here, right? We're gonna get you guys there. Get you that step. So we're gonna go with 150. You're conservative, very conservative. You'll set the heat low. You'll comfy each other with sweaters. So here we go. 150. What else you got?
Water emergency.
You said water.
What the hell?
But water was kind of included in here, unless you know you got some other idea,
Unless more alcohol clean
right? What? Cell phones, very important. Anybody here willing to live without a cell phone? No, these girls get divorced before that happens. I'll tell you right now, $100, it's going all out. Data plan and everything. What else? Here we go.
Something for emergency.
And you need the emergency budget. That's a smart financial planner, but we're talking minimum here, right? That's very good. No, I'm with you. The rule is 6 months, but anyhow, we can talk more about that later. What else? Come on, ideas. You guys don't want to go to a movie here and there? Huh? You don't want to camp? You don't want to do anything? You're just willing to sit at home and stare at each other because of the amount of love you have? No, you'll be divorced in a month. So listen, let's add another $100, call it. You'll eat McDonald's when you go to the movie theater, right? Okay, so here we go. Who can add that up quickly? Oh, by the way, you haven't purchased her a single pair of shoes yet. You're willing to live without shoes for a year.
$28.50.
What?
$28.50.
This is $28.50 quick, our mathematician said. So, but before we add that up, it's your responsibility to also provide the clothing and all of that as well. It's on you. Okay, here we go. It gets expensive, by the way, very. The more generous you are, the more the zeros come after the number. Not the hundreds go up to zeros. Okay? So we're gonna be nice. Sisters, throw a number out. It's your choice. Just throw it, random. 200? Yeah, right. Fine, we'll do it. We'll do it. 200 because she said it so kindly. She's willing to take $50 a week to marry you. She's willing for you to give her $50 a week, and she'll save up her loose change by the end of 3 months to buy whatever she needs to buy.
30-50.
3,050?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you get to 3,050? Anybody tell me quickly in the real world? Divide this by what? No. 0.75 after taxes. That's what you get. So, divide this, please. Someone. Was it about 4,000?
4,066.
4,000 times 12. How much do you have to make?
48.
48,000 a year. That's if you're willing to wear the same shoes, the same pants, the same underwear, the same undershirt, no cologne, and not get a haircut, unless you plan on doing it with 2 mirrors in your bathroom. So, you're gonna make $48,000 minimum a year to marry a sister today. So why did I do this example for you? Do you know how many brothers come after this lecture and start telling me they're ready for marriage? And that there's some manager in some store, I tell them how much did they make, they say, oh, it's personal. Do you want to get married or not? They tell me 28,000. How do you get to here with 28,000? Someone tell me. He said, I figured it out. There's this bridge. We're going to live under the bridge and we're going to camp out there. I save $1,500. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So go tell some father that that's where you're going to house his daughter, right? And see what he does to you. So you add this up and you start recognizing quickly that you ought to start getting some internships, some co-ops. And that's why they're telling you career and goal oriented. Because I don't know if any of you actually did this. And I want you to keep something in mind. This is bare minimum, people. Bare minimum. So if you wanted this bare minimum and you were ready for marriage, then you know that this is what you need to get married. Why do the scholars say this? The reason is because initiating the marriage is something else. The mahar is her right. That's her right. That can be paid later. You see that? You can defer if both parties agree upon that. Right? And you'll start seeing what a wedding could actually cost if you really didn't care for the extravagance and all of that. All right? And again, these are things that both parties have to settle on if we're talking minimum here. Very seldom will somebody agree to this. See, you mentioned religiosity, but how many people are willing to put that to action? That they're willing to take out all of these things for the sake of this religiosity man or this religiosity sister, right? You have to start asking yourself the real question. When you sit there and you define religiosity, then you sit there and you start saying, okay, you know, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He's the one who provides. I'm okay with the brother if he has good deen, good akhlaq, and he has a good career-oriented mind. I'm willing to sacrifice these things to be with him, right? And the reason we say that is because even the mahar sometimes can be overwhelming, especially in New Jersey. I've heard stories where the mahar can be $70,000 for a sister, right? Wake-up call, big wake-up call. And then it's the one of your life, your dreams. You guys had 2 meetings, everything worked out, you know, chemistry's there, things are bubbling, everything's great. Then the 3rd meeting comes, and he says, okay, well, obviously she has to finish school. We don't want her married until she finishes school. The mahar is $75,000, $10,000 up front, $65,000 deferred, and you're just like, whoa, time out. Back it up here a little bit. What are you talking about? He says, yeah, that's just standard practice. This is what we do. Here's something I want you to be very clear about. If the practice, that $65,000, is almost like an insurance policy, then that's fine. What do I mean by that? Some people stipulate that the mit'akhir is only given to her if there's a divorce. That is allowed. That is not owed to her. That's not part of her mother. It's more of a stipulation to help her financially if something were to depart. However, if they didn't actually stipulate that mit'akhir, which is the deferred amount of the dowry, is for that purpose, you owe her that as a debt, period. Period. That's as if you have this debt hanging over your head. Very important. You should rush to pay off such a debt. You should rush to pay off such a debt. So we differentiate wealth between the continuity of the marriage versus the initiating of the marriage. Questions on this, right? And the sisters mentioned generosity, keep in mind. So where's the extra stuff you're able to give to have that harmony in the relationship? The Prophet ﷺ said, give gifts between yourselves because it'll bring you all closer. You see, this is something very important. So you have to keep that kind of thing in mind. It's a very big responsibility. It's a very big responsibility. Family lineage is another reason, but it's also not a reason that should be prohibiting somebody in a racist manner. There was actually a father who, non-Arab Muslim, came to propose to his sister. She was not Arabic. So he comes and he says, absolutely not over my dead body. So the shuyukh got involved because, I don't know, maybe they met somewhere previous and whatever, it doesn't matter. And so they asked him, they said, you know, what's the problem here? And he specifically said, he's not Arab, I'm not marrying my daughter to a non-Arab. He said, she's okay with it. He said, I'd rather her marry a kafir Arab than this man. A disbelieving Arab than to marry a non-Arab Muslim. That's what he said. Here's something interesting. The father is the wali, or that guardian in the marriage, that final say. However, if he abuses his waliship in that level, all the scholars mentioned that can be stripped from him. Right? So if she went to the local masjid, and if he blatantly said that, then they could actually move forward with the marriage without him. They could find an uncle or a brother or whatever. Nonetheless, but there's another side of it. If he just comes back and says, you know what, I can't relate to these kind of people. They're just not my type. I don't see this working out. We've tried this with her previous sister. That fell apart. It's not good. Khalas, we're just comfortable with our culture. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's a wake-up call to a lot of our generation, unfortunately. Because that is not racism. I want to make sure understand. That's just compatibility. You understand that? There's a difference here. Even though the line is pretty thin between them. Love is one of the most important things to have in the relationship, to look for, obviously. Ibn Hazm, if you know this famous scholar in history, he actually was very much in love with a particular girl from within the kingdom, from within the castle. And he used to even think about her all the time. He used to write this in his books. And then he even came out with the concept of soulmates. And how did he recognize this? He didn't come up with it. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said very clearly that sometimes you just get along with another individual so well. But then there's sometimes you meet another person and there's just no way you could just befriend that person, no matter what. There's nothing wrong about them. There's not that they're just mean. There's literally nothing about them, but you just can't see yourself being pen pals with them, if you will, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, he said the souls, when they were created, before they were put into the ruh into the body, the soul into the body on earth, they used to intermingle and meet with one another. He said, and when you find someone that you're very, very cool and very close with, almost like you've known each other your entire lives, and that just works that way. He said that you've met in that other realm, and then you just met again in the dunya. So this concept of soulmates is actually in our religion. And it's funny because Ibn Hazm's book, Fulk al-Hamama, which is something dove. Who can translate that? Ring of the Dove. Huh? I'll get you the name of the book here. 1 second. Ring of the... And it's actually translated in English. Yeah, Fulk al-Hamama, it's called The Ring of the Dove. You can actually buy it. Apparently it's online for like $13, okay? And it's interesting, this book has been translated in many other languages, and so this concept of soulmates actually originates from that book, which originates from a hadith, but nobody gives credit to the Prophet ﷺ for telling us what happened in previous life. But anyhow, just to summarize on this particular talk here, there are practical ways about going and getting married. The most important is when you're looking to get married. Here are some of the halal areas that some people have met at to discuss. They have to be, number one, public areas. Your wali, your father or your mother, not just your mother, your father in particular, has to know that you're going to such a meeting, and you shouldn't be alone, right? That's the golden rule. You shouldn't be alone. Some people have met up in Starbucks. This one's weird. It gets me every time. Some people meet up in aisle 8 in Walmart. I don't know what's in aisle 8 in Walmart. But again, you can't be alone. The masjid. If there's a masjid facilitating such a thing, that's fine. Let's say some people has met up on Eid, right? Some family will say, oh, she's going to be there at Eid. You could go pray and then kind of get to see her and talk to her with her family knowing. Again, family knows about this, right? Also, different conventions. Some people said MSAs. Your family members, sisters, friends, a college in general. But here's the interesting part, and this is what we'll kind of end with, which is flirting. This is very important, and it's not to be taken lightly. So, do not speak in a flirtatious way because it will enter the heart of the man. The Prophet ﷺ specifically told that about sisters. Do not speak in a flirtatious way because it will enter the heart of a man, period. That means that even some scholars mention that she should actually try to deepen her voice if she knows that a fitna could be present, or she could just address in her regular voice, but in a very professional manner and not in a flirtatious manner. The experts in psychology call flirtation the decaf adultery, just so you're aware. You can flirt, and flirting comes in many ways. Flirting comes with eyes, you know, the 1970s kind of wink at her, whatever that still happens, right? The eyes. It can also be with the tongue, right? You just, I know I'm not flirting with you, I'm just saying that's what they do, right? And it can be also, just keep in mind that when this is the biggest blurred area. Because when you guys work together towards a project like Islam Awareness Week or some da'wah project or hijabathon or fastathon or whatever nice programs you guys got going on, you have to be very, very mindful not to ruin your akhirah in thinking that you're doing something good, right? So yeah, I'm definitely going to join this particular event programming, planning because I know this particular individual is going to be there. So keep that very much in mind. You have to really keep it to a professional way. Here's another very important thing. If you know that your heart is just attached to another individual and you're afraid of taking some action towards it, even a long stare, even a wink, even a flirtatious discussion, it's wajib upon you to limit your interaction with that person. You have to start reducing your interaction. You have to start moving away from that. Because I want you to keep in mind, you do not know the future. This could be potentially someone's spouse in the future. This could be some sister's husband. This could be some brother's wife. And you have to respect your Muslim sisters as if she was your own sister. Even before marriage and even after marriage, if there was a divorce. There was one scholar who he divorced his wife, and they asked him, you know, what happened? Why did you divorce her? He said, I have nothing except good things to say about her. She's my sister in Islam. But a lot of people's divorces don't wind up that way. They wind up very sour. Come. You like Starbucks? Let's sit down. Let me tell you about what this guy did. No, I'll tell you. You want to know how crazy he is? Boom, 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 boom. Do you know why they do that? They do it as a defense mechanism so that they don't look like there's somebody wrong and they're afraid of not getting remarried. You see, that's a problem though. You're not putting your trust in Allah. You're not putting your trust in Allah that this relationship simply didn't work out, and you only say something positive. Unless there's a condition. Unless what you know about the person will 100% harm another individual. Let me give you an example. You guys got married, everything was going to work out, and then before you had your intimate night, he broke out and told you, you know what, I got HIV. I just want to let you know I couldn't keep it in, blah, blah, blah. Whoa. Like this is a big deal. Serious business here, right? You're actually Islamically allowed to break it off, and if somebody asks you why, you're allowed to tell them why, right? Especially if you made sure you tested, you went through that thing, and you verified that. So it's something that will be harmful. If you're just somebody who gets very angry, things like that, just say I have nothing except good to say about them, and move on. Okay? Next week, inshallah, and don't forget the Prophet ﷺ said, your eyes commit adultery, your ears commit adultery, your tongue commits adultery, even your hands can commit adultery. These are all different softer forms of zina. Obviously, they're not the super major sin, but they're the thing that leads to zina. All right? Next week, inshallah, we will cover arranged marriages versus forced marriages. Salat al-Istikhara. We'll also cover the engagement period. All right? And then after we cover the engagement period, notice what we're doing, we're gonna actually walk you through a full marriage. So after the engagement period, we're actually gonna be talking about weddings, what is halal, what is not allowed, what are things that take place at weddings, a lot of us really don't know. Interactions when you guys are married with each other, having children, right? That's usually an interesting topic. And then different types of people you're allowed to marry, stipulating in a contract if he's allowed to marry more than one, if he can't marry more than one, and a brother, if his wife insists on working, is it in fact that you're still 100% responsible for the funds in the family? These are things we're all going to cover, right? Which will better help everyone understand that. Does anybody have any questions on what we covered today? On today. If there's something that we're going to cover, we will. Right? This is just the first of the few lectures in this topic. Yes.
Are you gonna go over like I know you talked about it a little bit today, where like your parents prefer something and you prefer something else?
Yeah.
You're gonna go more into that later, or like?
Yeah, I am going to go into that, and I'm going to also go into even something one step further, the in-laws. And a lot of people don't understand the relationship that the spouse has with the in-laws and who's responsible for maintaining that relationship. There's a lot of weird things that happen, I found. There's a lot of stipulations that people say, yeah, we know that your first priority is your mother. Everyone knows that. This is not a hidden secret, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions that in the Quran, and He also mentioned, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that to us. But how does that relationship now fall into place when you're married? Right? So that's something we got to talk about. That's what we got to talk about. So we will cover that, inshallah. Anybody else? And we're also going to cover about being violent, hitting, right? We're going to cover all of that. This is a very, very important topic because I know a lot of brothers are misunderstood, misinformed about this particular thing. May Allah grant us knowledge in it. Okay, أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله ولكم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.